Commander Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he did not care. His eyes stayed fixed on the radar screen that showed something impossible. 50 massive ships hung in space near Jupiter, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, we're getting another transmission," said Lieutenant Karen White. Her voice shook as she spoke. She had been trying to stay calm for the past 6 hours, but fear showed in her eyes. Jake nodded. "Put it through the main speakers." The voice that filled the bridge was cold and mechanical. It spoke perfect English, though the words came from something that had never been human. "This is High Arbitrator Vexthal of the Galactic Hegemony. We address the dominant species of the third planet. You will respond immediately." Admiral Kate Sullivan entered the bridge at that moment. She had flown up from Earth as soon as the alien ships appeared. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, and her uniform showed no wrinkles despite the long flight. She had commanded Earth's space forces for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for this day. "Play the message again," she ordered. The alien voice spoke again. "Your species has reached the level where tribute must be paid to the hegemony. This is not a request. This is a statement of fact. You have 72 hours to comply with our demands." The transmission continued with a list that made everyone on the bridge go silent. The aliens wanted 60% of Earth's metals, oil, and food. They wanted 40% of all humans between the ages of 18 and 45 for work in their colonies. They wanted Earth's governments to surrender and accept hegemony rule. "If you refuse," the voice said, "your planet will be destroyed. Your species will end. We have done this 1,047 times before. No species has ever successfully resisted the hegemony. You have 72 hours. The transmission ended. The bridge stayed quiet for a long moment. Outside the windows, Earth looked peaceful and blue. It was hard to believe that 50 alien warships were pointing weapons at their home. "Get me President Rodriguez on the secure line," Admiral Sullivan said, "and patch me through to all the other world leaders. We need an emergency meeting in 1 hour." Dr. Alex Chen had been Earth's top expert on possible alien life for 20 years. Now he stood in a room full of generals and politicians, trying to explain what they faced. His hands shook as he pointed to images of the alien ships on the main screen. "Each ship is about 3 miles long," he said. "Our best guess is that they're made from materials we don't understand. Their weapons could destroy our entire planet without much effort." General Pete Harrison slammed his fist on the table. "There has to be something we can do. We can't just give up without a fight." "Fight with what?" asked Secretary Walsh. "Our best warships are like toys compared to one of their ships. We have maybe 200 combat vessels. They have 50 ships that could each destroy our entire fleet." Captain Lisa Brooks had seen the alien ships through her telescope from the UES Liberty. She spoke up from her position near the back of the room. "Sir, I've been studying their formation. They're not even trying to hide. They're just sitting there, waiting. It's like they know we can't hurt them." President Rodriguez looked tired. She had been awake for 18 hours since the aliens first appeared. "What about evacuation? Can we get people off the planet?" Dr. Helen Park, the military's best strategist, shook her head. "We don't have enough ships. Even if we used every transport vessel on Earth, we could maybe save a few million people. There are 8 billion humans on our planet." The room fell quiet again. Through the windows of the United Nations building, they could see people in the big streets below. News trucks were everywhere. The whole world knew about the aliens now, and panic was starting to spread. "What about other alien species?" asked General Foster. "Maybe some of them would help us." Dr. Chen pulled up another screen. "We've been listening to their communications for hours. From what we can tell, there are hundreds of species under hegemony control. Some tried to fight, some tried to run. All of them lost. The hegemony has been doing this for over 1,000 years. Admiral Sullivan stood up. "We need to think about this carefully. If we fight, we all die. If we surrender, at least some humans survive even if they're slaves." "Is that really living?" asked Captain Brooks. "Being slaves to aliens?" Nobody had a good answer to that question. Outside, the sun was setting over New York City. In space, the alien ships waited like silent death. Earth had 66 hours left to make the most important decision in human history. News anchor Dan Miller sat in front of his camera, trying to find words for something that had no words. Behind him, a screen showed pictures of the alien fleet. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped his desk tightly. "This is day one of what may be humanity's final week," he said. "The aliens have given us 3 days to surrender most of our world and almost half our people. World leaders are meeting now to decide what humanity will do. We'll stay on the air with continuous coverage as this story develops." In homes around the world, families gathered around their televisions. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Some people prayed, others packed bags, though there was nowhere to run. Many just sat and stared at the ceiling, trying to understand how their world had changed so completely in one day. The alien ships continued to wait, dark and silent against the stars. Time was running out for humanity, and everyone knew it. The emergency meeting had been going for 12 hours. Coffee cups and empty food containers covered the large table in the United Nations building. World leaders sat with red eyes and tired faces, but nobody wanted to sleep. How could anyone sleep when the world might end in 2 days? President Rodriguez rubbed her forehead. "Let's go over this one more time. If we fight, they destroy everything. If we surrender, 4 billion people become slaves and Earth becomes their property." "Not slaves," corrected Secretary Walsh. "Workers. There might be a difference." "General." Amy Foster laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "Workers who can never go home. Workers who will never see their families again. Call it what you want, Tony. But it's still slavery." Dr. Helen Park had run the computer simulations 50 times. Each time, the result was the same. She stood up and pointed to the screen behind her. "I've tried every possible battle plan. We lose every single time. Our best-case scenario is that we destroy maybe 3 of their ships before they wipe us out completely." 3 ships out of 50, said Admiral Sullivan. "That's not even a real fight. That's just making them angry before they kill us." Captain Ryan Bell had volunteered to lead a small scouting mission. His ship, the UES Defiance, was Earth's fastest vessel. "What if we try to learn more about them first? I could take a small team and get closer to their fleet." "And then what?" asked General Harrison. "Even if you learn something useful, what can we do with it? We don't have weapons that can hurt them." The room fell quiet. Outside the windows, they could see protesters in the street. Some carried signs that said, "Fight back and never surrender." Others held signs that said, "Save our children and accept the deal." The world was split between those who wanted to fight and those who wanted to survive. Nina Clark, the communications specialist, spoke up from her corner desk. "Sir, I've been listening to their radio chatter for the past day. They seem surprised that we haven't answered yet." "What do you mean?" asked President Rodriguez. "Most species surrender within the first few hours. The longest any species has taken to respond was 18 hours. We're already past that." Dr. Alex Chen looked up from his tablet. "I've been studying their previous conquests. The pattern is always the same. They arrive, they make demands, the species surrenders quickly. Sometimes there's a small fight, but it never lasts long." "So we're already doing something different," said Admiral Sullivan. "Different doesn't mean better," warned Dr. Park. "It might just mean we're being stupid." In another part of the city, ordinary people were trying to cope with the impossible situation. Teacher Lucy Adams stood in front of her classroom, looking at 30 frightened children. Their parents had sent them to school because they didn't know what else to do. Normal life had to continue somehow. "Miss Adams," said 8-year-old Tim Baker, Are the aliens really going to take my mom and dad away? Lucy knelt down next to his desk. She had been teaching for 15 years, but she had never faced a question like this. I don't know, Tim. The grown-ups are trying to figure out what to do. My dad says we should fight them, said Sarah Kim from the back of the class. My mom says fighting will just get everyone killed, replied Bobby Martinez. Lucy looked around the room at all the scared faces. These children might be among the last generation of free humans. The thought made her feel sick, but she had to stay strong for them. Across town, mechanic Steve Johnson was working on a car engine, but his mind was somewhere else. His hands moved automatically while he thought about the aliens. His son was 22 years old. If Earth surrendered, the boy would be taken away to work in alien colonies. Hey, Steve, called his co-worker Danny from across the garage. You think we got any chance against those things? Steve wiped his hands on a dirty rag. I fought in 3 wars, Danny. I know what hopeless looks like. This is beyond hopeless. So what do we do? I don't know. I really don't know. At the hospital, Nurse Kelly Turner was working a double shift. The emergency room was packed with people who had panic attacks or stress-related problems. Some had tried to hurt themselves rather than face what might come. Others had gotten into fights with family members about what humanity should do. Dr. Martinez, Kelly called out. Room 7 needs sedation again. Dr. Carlos Martinez looked as tired as everyone else. That's the 5th one today. People are breaking down. Can you blame them? Kelly asked. Half the patients keep asking if we should fight. The other half ask if we should surrender. I don't know what to tell them. Back at the United Nations, the debate continued. Night had fallen, but the light stayed on in the meeting room. Outside, more protesters had gathered. The crowd was getting bigger and louder. We need to think about the bigger picture, said the British Prime Minister. If humanity survives as slaves, maybe someday we can find a way to be free again. If we fight and die, there's no second chance. What kind of life is that? Asked the president of Brazil. Living on our knees, watching our children grow up as property? It's still life, replied the prime minister. General Foster stood up and walked to the window. Below, she could see the crowd of protesters. Some were lighting candles. Others were singing. Many were just standing there looking lost. You know what I see down there? She said. I see humans doing what humans do. When things get bad, we come together. When someone threatens us, we don't run away. We stand up. Standing up isn't always smart, said Secretary Walsh. Maybe not, Foster replied, but it's what makes us human. Communications specialist Nina Clark looked up from her equipment again. Sir, I'm picking up something new, radio chatter from other star systems. Word about us is spreading through the galaxy. What are they saying? Asked Admiral Sullivan. Most of it is in languages we don't understand, but some species are using simple trade language. They're talking about the humans who won't answer. Some sound curious, others sound scared. President Rodriguez leaned forward. Scared of what? Scared of what the hegemony will do to them if this doesn't go according to plan. Apparently, the hegemony doesn't like it when things don't follow their schedule. The room went quiet again. Time was running out, and they were no closer to a decision. Earth had 36 hours left, and humanity still didn't know what it wanted to do. Fight and die, or surrender and live as slaves. Neither choice seemed right, but those were the only options they had. Outside, the alien ships continued their silent wait. 24 hours remained when President Rodriguez made an announcement that surprised the world. Instead of world leaders making the decision alone, she called for the largest democratic vote in human history. Every adult on Earth would have a voice in humanity's choice. This decision affects every human being, she said on television. It should be made by every human being. The logistics were impossible, but somehow it started working. Governments opened schools, libraries, and public buildings as voting centers. In places without electricity, people gathered in town squares to cast paper ballots. The internet carried digital votes from people in remote areas. Military ships collected votes from sailors at sea. Elder statesman John Hayes, who had served in government for 40 years, addressed the global council that was set up to hear from all sides. His voice was steady despite his 82 years. "I have seen humanity face many terrible choices," he said, "but we have always found strength in our ability to choose together. Whatever we decide as one people." Young activist Emma Stone spoke next. At 23 years old, she represented the generation that would live longest with whatever choice humanity made. Her voice carried across the world through satellite links. "The aliens think they know us," she said. "They think we're just another species that will bow down when threatened. Maybe it's time to show them who humans really are." Religious leader Father Paul Mitchell offered a different view. "Sometimes the greatest courage is knowing when not to fight. Saving lives, even lives in slavery, might be more important than pride." The debate went on for hours. Scientists, philosophers, soldiers, teachers, farmers, and factory workers all had their chance to speak. The whole world was listening, and the whole world was arguing. Dr. Carol Davis, Earth's leading physicist, presented cold facts. The math is simple. We cannot win a fight against them. Choosing to fight is choosing to kill every human being alive. But choosing slavery is choosing to kill what makes us human, replied Dr. Sam Wright, a philosophy professor from Chicago. Colonel Lycef, Jake Turner had fought in wars on 3 continents. His words carried weight with the military people listening around the world. "I've seen men choose death over surrender. I've also seen them choose life over pride. Both can be the right choice depending on the situation." "What situation is this?" asked someone from the crowd. Turner was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. That's what makes it so hard." The stories people told became the heart of the debate. Factory worker Mike Davis talked about his grandfather, who had survived a prisoner of war camp in World War II. "My grandfather always said the important thing wasn't dying for your country," Mike said. "It was living for your family. He spent 3 years in that camp, but he came home. He lived to see his children grow up. Sometimes surviving is the victory." Artist Sarah Williams had a different view. "My great-grandmother lived through the occupation of her country. She always told me that some things are worse than death. She said losing your freedom isn't just about you. It's about all the people who come after you." The debate moved to what slavery under the aliens might actually mean. Dr. Helen Park had studied their previous conquest carefully. "From what we can tell, the aliens don't treat their workers badly," she said. "They provide food, shelter, and medical care. The workers live in decent conditions. As long as they do what they're told," added General Foster. "As long as they never try to go home. As long as they never say no." "Is that really so different from most jobs?" asked someone from the audience. The question started a new round of arguments. Some people said work was already like slavery for many humans. Others said there was still a choice involved, still freedom to change jobs or move to a new place. Communications officer Nina Clark provided updates on what the aliens were doing. "They're not just waiting anymore. Their ships have started moving into different positions. It looks like they're preparing for either a mass transport operation or a military attack." "How long until they're ready?" asked Admiral Sullivan. "Maybe 6 hours. 8 at the most." The deadline was getting closer, but the debate was far from over. Historian Dr. Beth Collins stood up and asked for attention from the global audience. "I want to tell you about Thermopylae," she said. 300 Spartans faced an army of thousands. They knew they would die. They fought anyway because some things matter more than living. "I want to tell you about the Underground Railroad," she continued. "Slaves who risked everything for freedom they might never see. Parents who sent their children north, knowing they might never see them again. I want to tell you about the Warsaw Ghetto. People who had nothing left but pride, fighting against impossible odds because surrender felt like death anyway. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. Humans have always had a choice between safety and freedom. We have always chosen the hard path when it mattered. But we've also chosen to survive, called out someone from the crowd. We've bent when we had to bend. We've waited for better times. When? Asked Dr. Collins. When have we ever faced something like this? When have we ever had the choice to surrender our entire species? The question hung in the air. This was different from any choice humans had ever faced. There was no hiding, no waiting for rescue, no hope that someone else would solve the problem. Teacher Lucy Adams spoke for the parents watching around the world. I look at my students and I think about their futures. If we fight, they have no future at all. If we surrender, they'll grow up as slaves, but they'll grow up. What kind of growing up is that? Asked mechanic Steve Johnson. What kind of life can they have? Any life is better than no life, Lucy replied. Is it? Steve shot back. My grandfather fought in Vietnam. He always said there are things worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. The arguments continued as the hours passed. Some people talked about duty to future generations. Others talked about the duty to keep humanity alive, even in slavery. Some quoted history, others quoted religion, still others talked about their own experiences. Through it all, one thing became clear. This wasn't really a debate about military strategy or political theory. It was a debate about what it meant to be human. As the final hours approached, a strange thing happened. The arguments started to come together around a single idea. Maybe the choice wasn't really between fighting and surrendering. Maybe the choice was between acting like humans or acting like every other species the aliens had conquered. The vote was close, but when all the ballots were counted, humanity had made its decision, not about fighting or surrendering, but about how to respond to beings who thought they could make demands of Earth. President Rodriguez prepared to announce the result to the waiting world. In space, the alien ships moved into their final positions. The deadline was just hours away. Humanity was about to give its answer. With 30 minutes left before the deadline, Admiral Sullivan stood in the communications center deep inside the United Nations building. The vote had been counted 3 times to make sure it was correct. The result was clear, but still hard to believe. President Rodriguez entered the room, followed by representatives from every major nation on Earth. The weight of 8 billion human lives rested on what would happen in the next few minutes. "The vote is final?" asked the president. "Yes, ma'am," replied Admiral Sullivan. 62% in favor. It's not even close." Communications Officer Chris Parker sat at his station, hands hovering over the controls that would send humanity's response across space. He was 28 years old, fresh out of the academy, and he was about to deliver the most important message in human history. "Sir," he said, his voice barely steady, "all channels are open. Every human radio, television, and internet connection is linked to this transmission. The whole world is listening." "The whole galaxy is listening," added Nina Clark from her monitoring station. "I'm detecting receivers from at least 40 different star systems. Word has spread everywhere." High Arbitrator Vexthal waited aboard his flagship, the Dominance. In 1,047 previous encounters, no species had ever taken this long to respond. His advisors were confused by the delay. "Perhaps they do not understand the terms," suggested Subcommander Krillth. "Impossible," replied Vexthal. "We transmitted in their dominant language. The terms are simple." "Then why do they wait?" Vexthal studied the blue planet on his screen. "Perhaps they are saying goodbye. Some species do this before surrender." On Earth, President Rodriguez took a deep breath. She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Fear was there, but also something else. something that looked almost like pride. "Are we really going to do this?" asked Secretary Walsh. "The people have spoken," replied the president. "Democracy means following their choice, even when we think it might be wrong." General Foster checked her watch. 15 minutes until deadline. "Chris," said Admiral Sullivan, "send the message." Chris Parker's finger moved to the transmission button. Around the world, people gathered around televisions, radios, and computer screens. In Times Square, a massive crowd had assembled to watch on the giant electronic billboards. Similar crowds filled public spaces in every major city on Earth. The transmission began with the standard diplomatic codes that identified Earth as the sender. Then came the message itself, broadcast simultaneously in English, Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi, and 50 other human languages. But the message was the same in every language. One word that carried the weight of humanity's choice: no. The word echoed across the communications center. It bounced off satellites and traveled through space at the speed of light. In 37 minutes, it would reach the alien fleet waiting near Jupiter. But the effect on Earth was immediate. In Times Square, the crowd erupted. Some people cheered, others cried, many just stood in stunned silence. Around the world, humanity's reaction was just as mixed. Chris Parker leaned back in his chair, sweat on his forehead despite the cool air conditioning. "Message sent, sir." "All frequencies?" asked Admiral Sullivan. "Yes, sir. Every radio band we have. The aliens will receive it, and so will anyone else listening." Dr. Jennifer Lee, monitoring galactic communications from her station, suddenly looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, you need to hear this." She switched the main speakers to pick up alien chatter from around the galaxy. The sounds were strange, mechanical voices speaking in languages no human understood. But the excitement in those alien voices was clear. "What are they saying?" asked President Rodriguez. "I don't know the words," replied Dr. Lee, "but I know that tone. They're shocked. Some of them sound excited. Others sound scared." Nina Clark was monitoring different frequencies. "Ma'am, I'm picking up transmissions from the Hegemony fleet. They're talking to each other. Can you translate any of it? Some basic concepts. They keep using words that might mean impossible and unprecedented. They're asking each other what to do next." Admiral Sullivan allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Let them figure it out for a while." Across the galaxy, the word spread faster than anyone expected. Species that had been under hegemony control for hundreds of years suddenly had something new to talk about. The humans had said no, not "we need more time," or "can we negotiate," or "please don't hurt us." Just no. On the hegemony world of Zephyr, Prime, former soldiers who had surrendered decades ago, whispered the word to each other in the work camps. No. Such a simple word, but they had forgotten it existed. On Corthan Beta, the conquered government officials who now served as administrators, for their hegemony masters found themselves remembering what independence had felt like. No. The word their grandparents had stopped using 50 years ago. Back on Earth, the immediate reaction was settling into something deeper. The choice had been made, and now humanity had to live with it. Or die with it. Captain Lisa Brooks stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching her crew prepare for battle. Every human warship was doing the same thing. They were about to face an enemy they couldn't defeat, but they were ready. "Captain," said her first officer, Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez, "all weapons are armed and ready." "Thank you, Ben. How are the crew holding up?" "Better than I expected, sir. Nobody's happy about dying, but nobody's complaining about the choice either." Captain Brooks nodded. "Send a message to the fleet. Tell them it's been an honor serving with them." Similar messages were being sent across Earth's defense forces. Soldiers, sailors, and pilots who had never expected to fight aliens were making their final preparations. They knew they would lose, but they also knew they had chosen to lose on their own terms. In the communications center, the wait began. It would take 37 minutes for humanity's message to reach the alien fleet, and at least that long for any response to come back. "What do you think they'll do?" asked Secretary Walsh. "Attack," replied General Foster. "We've insulted them, in front of the whole galaxy. They can't let that stand." "Maybe," said Admiral Sullivan, "but they've never faced this situation before. They might not know what to do either." The minutes passed slowly. Around the world, people waited. Some prayed, others prepared for war. Many just held their families close. Children who were too young to understand the details knew that something very important was happening. As the 40-minute mark approached, Dr. Lee's monitoring equipment started picking up new signals. "I've got movement from the hegemony fleet. Their ships are changing formation." "Battle formation?" asked Admiral Sullivan. "Unknown, but definitely something different." Nina Clark was monitoring the alien communications more carefully now. "They're transmitting to other hegemony forces around the galaxy, long-range communications. They're reporting the situation to someone higher up." "Higher than High Arbitrator?" asked President Rodriguez. "Apparently. Whoever they're talking to, they're using very formal language. This is going up the chain of command." On his flagship, Vexthal was indeed speaking to the Hegemony High Council. In over 1,000 years of conquest, no situation like this had ever arisen. The humans had not asked for mercy, had not tried to negotiate, had not begged for more time. They had simply refused. "What are your orders?" Vexthal asked the council. The response took several minutes to arrive across the vast distances of space. When it came, it was simple and direct. "Make an example of them. The galaxy must know that defying the hegemony means death." Vexthal closed the communication link and turned to his bridge crew. "Prepare all weapons. Target the human planet. We will destroy it completely." But as his ships moved into attack position, something unexpected happened. Long-range sensors detected movement from other star systems. Ships were leaving planets throughout the galaxy, heading toward Earth. For the first time in his long career, High Arbitrator Vexthal felt something that might have been worry. The humans had done more than say no. They had reminded the galaxy what that word meant. The battle for Earth was about to begin, but it would not be the one-sided destruction the hegemony expected. Humanity's single word had awakened something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The galaxy was about to remember what freedom looked like. The first shots of the battle for Earth came from the hegemony fleet. Massive energy beams lanced out from their ships, targeting Earth's orbital defense platforms. Commander Roy Gibson watched from the bridge of Defense Station Alpha as the enemy weapons tore through space toward them. "All crews, brace for impact!" he shouted into his communicator. The beams struck with the force of small suns. 3 defense platforms vanished in bright flashes. But something unexpected happened. Return fire came not just from Earth's remaining platforms, but from ships that had just emerged from hyperspace jumps near Jupiter. "What the hell?" muttered Gibson, staring at his screens. "Those aren't human ships." Captain Angela Moore, commanding the Defense Coordination Center on Earth, was getting reports from across the solar system. "Sir, we have unknown vessels engaging the hegemony fleet, at least 40 ships, maybe more." Admiral Sullivan rushed to the main display. The tactical screen showed a confused mess of ships fighting around Jupiter and moving toward Earth. Red markers showed hegemony vessels, blue showed human ships, but there were also green, yellow, and purple markers representing unknown forces. "Who are they?" asked President Rodriguez. Communications Officer Brad Miller was working frantically at his station, trying to sort through dozens of alien transmissions. "Ma'am, I'm getting messages in multiple languages. Some of them are using basic trade language. They're saying things like, 'Remember freedom,' and 'Stand with humans.'" On his flagship, High Arbitrator Vexthal was discovering that his perfect plan was falling apart. His long-range sensors showed ships arriving from every direction. Species that had been conquered decades or centuries ago were somehow fielding hidden fleets. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "Unknown, sir. The Zephyrians were supposed to have no military capability remaining. The Korthan resistance was eliminated 50 years ago. Where did these ships come from?" The answer was becoming clear as the battle developed. For generations, conquered species had been secretly building ships, training crews, and preparing for a day that most thought would never come. Humanity's refusal to surrender had become the signal they had been waiting for. Captain Lisa Brooks led a squadron of human fighters toward a group of hegemony cruisers. Her small ships were no match for the alien vessels. But they weren't fighting alone. Sleek Zephyrian interceptors flew alongside them, their weapons adding firepower to the attack. "Human flight leader," came a voice over the radio in accented but clear English. "This is Zephyrian Squadron Leader Veltar. We fight together today." "Copy that, Veltar," replied Brooks. "It's good to have friends." The battle was not going the way anyone expected. Earth's forces had been preparing to die fighting against impossible odds. The hegemony had been expecting to crush a single planet's resistance. Instead, they found themselves fighting a galaxy-wide rebellion. Dr. Jennifer Lee was monitoring communications from across the battlefield and beyond. "Admiral, I'm picking up transmissions from over 60 star systems. The word is spreading everywhere. Species that have been quiet for centuries are talking about uprising." "What are they saying?" asked Admiral Sullivan. "The same thing, in dozens of languages. The humans said no. If humans can say no, so can we." The fighting around Earth intensified as more ships arrived on both sides. The hegemony was calling in reinforcements from nearby systems, but so were the rebels. What had started as a simple conquest was becoming the largest space battle in galactic history. Colonel Nancy Adams had developed new battle tactics, specifically for fighting the hegemony. Human military doctrine emphasized speed, surprise, and hitting the enemy where they didn't expect it. Other species were quickly adopting these strategies. "The key is not to fight their strength," she explained over the command frequency. "Hit their flanks. Target their communications arrays, make them fight 10 battles at once instead of one big one." The Zephyrian and Korthan commanders were listening carefully. Their people had been warriors once, before the hegemony conquered them. The tactical knowledge was still there, just waiting to be remembered. As the battle raged, something even more significant was happening across the galaxy. On world after world, the news of humanity's refusal was sparking uprisings. Workers in the mining colonies were putting down their tools. Government officials installed by the hegemony were being arrested by their own people. Military units that had served the conquerors for decades were switching sides. High Arbitrator Vexthal was receiving reports of rebellion from across his territory. A problem that should have been solved with one decisive battle was spreading like a disease through the galaxy. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we have uprisings confirmed in 47 systems. Local hegemony forces are requesting immediate reinforcement." "We don't have reinforcements to send," Vexthal replied. "Every ship we have is here, fighting these humans and their allies." For the first time in over 1,000 years, the hegemony was losing control. The turning point of the battle came when the largest hegemony ship, the super dreadnought Dominance, found itself surrounded by a mixed fleet of human, Zephyrian, and Korthan vessels. Captain Brooks led the final attack, her small fighter somehow penetrating the massive ship's defenses. "This is for everyone who ever said no," she transmitted as her ship's weapons found their target. The explosion of the Dominance lit up space like a new star. Across the battlefield, rebel ships erupted in celebration while remaining hegemony. Vessels began to retreat. But Vexthal was not finished. As his fleet fell back, he activated a weapon that had never been used before. A planet-killer device that would destroy Earth, even if it meant sacrificing his remaining ships. The weapon powered up slowly, giving the defenders precious minutes to respond. But there was no way to stop it. Earth's shields could not protect against something designed to crack planets apart. Admiral Sullivan made the hardest decision of her military career. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. We can't save the planet, but we can save some of our people. Captain Brooks refused the order. Negative, Admiral. We didn't come this far to run away now. As the planet killer weapon reached full power, something unexpected happened. Ships from species no one had heard from in centuries began arriving through hyperspace. The ancient Melody, who had been the first species conquered by the hegemony, emerged from hiding with technology that no one knew still existed. Their weapons struck the dominance just as Vexthal activated his planet killer. The massive explosion destroyed both ships, but the threat to Earth was ended. In the aftermath of the battle, representatives from dozens of species gathered in Earth's orbit. The Galactic Freedom Alliance was born in the wreckage of the hegemony fleet, with Earth as its moral center. President Rodriguez addressed the gathering via video link from the surface. "We didn't choose to fight because we thought we could win. We chose to fight because some things are more important than winning." "The humans have reminded us all of something we had forgotten," replied Veltar, now speaking for the liberated, Zephyrians. "Sometimes the most powerful word in the galaxy is no." The war was far from over. Hegemony forces still controlled much of the galaxy, and they would not give up easily. But something fundamental had changed. Species that had been slaves for generations were remembering what freedom felt like. 6 months later, Captain Brooks stood on the bridge of the new UES Defiance, leading a joint patrol with ships from 12 different species. The galaxy was still fighting for its freedom, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. "Captain," reported her communications officer, "we're getting a distress call from the Rigel system. Local population is requesting assistance with their uprising." Brooks smiled. "Set course for Rigel. Maximum speed." As her ship jumped to hyperspace, followed by a fleet of allies who had once been enemies, she thought about the word that had changed everything. Such a simple word, really. Just 2 letters. But it had freed a galaxy. Across the stars, whenever a hegemony ship demanded surrender, whenever a conquered world was told to submit, whenever anyone tried to take away the freedom of others, the response was always the same: no. And the galaxy remembered what that word meant.